Do you have a question or a comment for my guest this evening? Then why not text 07900 171 453, or if you're listening via the Swindon 105.5 app or website, just click on the Contact Us button and that will email me directly here in the studio. Hello and good evening and welcome to Don't Stop the Music radio show. My name is Peggy-Sue and I am your host. Now the song you just heard there, or the rather nice bouncy electronic track, is from my guest this evening. So I'd like to welcome to the studio Pete Oxy. Hello Pete, how are you?
Hi Peggy-Sue, I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Now please tell us about that track, because it is entitled, this is how you sent it in, it's entitled War Coffee Part 1, in brackets, Shouter.
Yeah.
So tell us about that track.
So War Coffee came to me from let's go back a couple of years, 2022 February, when the invasion began in Ukraine. Online, there were a lot of people who were affected by the invasion. Ordinary people living ordinary lives, but all of a sudden found themselves in a position where they had to reach out and look for help. Some of these people used a hashtag, if you like, that was War Coffee. And what one of the ladies was doing is every day she would have coffee and she would post and she would put on updates of what was happening in the city.
Okay.
In Kiev. So I listened to that, and I spent some time looking at some materials that people were putting online. And of course, it's a horrific event. It really wasn't nice to see what was happening to people. And you ask yourself the question, what can we do? What is there that we can really engage, or how can we engage with people? And I was following a few charity workers, people actually working in there, and decided, okay, let me make some music. Let me try and help get their message across through the medium of music. So I created, first of all, Shelter, the first track you hear. Yeah. And a set of other tracks that are all together at the moment on a 20-minute video, which is on YouTube. Now, one of the things I did was I was receiving a lot of video clips from people as well on what was happening. And the one that was really, and you'll have to watch this to get it, but it was in Dnipro, I think, and one of the workers had filmed a young lady who was dancing in a square in the town, and she had a shirt that she was holding when she was dancing, and he spoke to her about it afterwards and got the backstory. But what had happened was her father, she was a 14-year-old girl, her father had gone to war, and she didn't know when he was coming back, she didn't know what was going to happen, and she performed this dance with his shirt in the street. And when I saw that, it kind of really matched with the mood here. That song is very moody, and apologies for everybody for the somber mood that we start with here. But it is about war, right? It is about the atrocities. It is about what's happening to people that's very unfair. And subsequently, I wrote the rest of the tracks for that 20-minute video, including one track that I sort of dug up from around 2006 and revamped, which is called Never Direct Me, which is the next track that you're going to play. And combine these all together into one theme, and that theme is War Coffee. So that's been out for a while. I think I released that about 2 months after the invasion started, so back in 2022.
Wow. So they've all come together, all these different songs, all these tracks, as you say, tell a story, which before we came on air, we were talking about another thing as a story, War of the Worlds.
Yes.
So in another way, that would be similar to that. How did that, I know you said you've seen the videos and things, but how did that concept come to you with those? Because was it the videos you've seen of these clips that made the tune, that gave you like a tune or something in your head to, because obviously it's going to be in your head first, and everything always goes in your head first, that idea that came in, that's the tune that needs to go with that, or that's that part and that's that part, or was it actually, did you hear a tune or you had the tune in your head first and the music just matched, or the clips just matched, shall I say?
A lot of it is happy accidents. Happy accidents.
I like happy accidents.
So I would, my big passion is for synthesizers and the sounds that they can make. So I would normally start off something with a synthesizer and explore and twiddle around with the sounds. And on that particular track, I kind of came up with that bass, that quite heavy bass that's all the way through the song. Yeah. And began working with that. Some of the other sounds sound a bit like guitars, but they are actually synthesizers that are processed through guitar, what we call VSTs, or virtual studio technology, which is huge today. So I have collections of almost every synthesizer that's ever been made. You can buy them as virtual instruments. So I play around with these things and tweak them. And as I progressed, I was getting feeds of, as I said, the video, which kind of gave me the inspiration. Okay, let me slow this down and maybe do a piano piece at the end, or a slower part that kind of breaks it. And and also reading the stories of what people were going through. And on one of the videos there was the siren, which you hear in the beginning of the tune, and it comes back in, and that was haunting. And I kind of listened to that and thought, actually, that fits right there. that is where it should start. If you look at the video, it kind of does a sweep across Kiev, some of the flats that are high-rise flats that are there. And it kind of breaks into some war scenes and then kind of moves towards the girl dancing, which is always there, but that's kind of layered. I'm not a videographer, and I don't like spending time, I see it as a bit of a waste of time making videos, but you have to do that as well, because you are telling a story, and it is difficult to get the meaning of that story across, especially that I don't sing. I struggle to find vocalists all the time.
I think you've got a vocalist at, is it the next track? Or
yes. Yeah.
A female singer. So who's that on? Who's singing on that one? So
that was recorded a long time ago, and actually that is a lady by the name of Tara J. Williams, who is from Swindon.
Ah, brilliant.
And it was really interesting how that came together, because it was in the early days of, I would say, music on the internet and so on. There was something called MySpace.
Yes, I know MySpace.
and MySpace, that was set to be the big thing. Everyone was on MySpace. And I was talking to a lot of people on there, and I sort of put an advert out there and said, does anybody want to collaborate, and sing, and I can do the electronic music backing. Tara was in London at that stage, and she filmed herself singing while walking from Tooting station back to where she lived, and you could even hear the footsteps as she walked, her footsteps on the ground. And I listened to it, and it was very dark and moody. You'll hear it in a minute. It's a very dark, again, I do a lot of dark, moody stuff, and I'm going to play some lighter stuff as well today, but I took a lot of the sound that she was making subconsciously, so breathing, walking, the steps, and you can actually hear them in the track. And I'll kind of point out to you, the listeners won't be able to see me pointing, but I'll kind of show you where that comes in. So I blended that sound in. And the other thing that happened back in it was 2006, I think, when we recorded this. The technology was getting better. There was an application called FL Studio, or Fruity Loops, which was an arrangement application. Today there's Ableton.
We use Audacity here in the studio.
So there's so many of them. But back then there were fewer of them, and the one I used was called FL Studio or Fruity Loops. But it didn't have very good vocal processing. That was something I didn't know much about either. So I ended up cutting. We went to a studio to record her vocals, and I ended up cutting and pasting her vocals and manually and sort of adjusting it. And it was quite a painful experience.
I was going to say, that sounds painful.
We didn't have Melodyne, we didn't have all of these amazing tools that you can actually just go into and make it. So it was a painful process, but I had to layer her voice as well. So I had to build multiple tracks to layer the voice, but it was done almost handcrafted. Now, we're going to talk about AI hopefully tonight a bit, but today there's all kinds of AI tools, but the thing is that you're in a process here and you're making something. And if I'd have let AI do that for me, it wouldn't have been as rewarding. It would... I'll talk about that once we've heard the track, but that's kind of the process I went through, and actually that's what I do all the time in making music. It's just layering sound, and it's balancing that sound, and that's the hard part.
As we've spoken about the track, let's play it now. So this is Never Direct Me.
Which way to turn?
So that there was Never Direct Me. And yeah, you can hear definitely the breathing, but I think because we've, unfortunately, even though we're full of technology here in the studio, we've only got one speaker to listen to the song. So we couldn't quite hear the footsteps there. But I will say, whilst that was playing, we've actually had a message come in.
Oh, great.
So hello and thank you for messaging in, Nick. It's really lovely to hear from you. So this is Nick Tibbets. Hopefully I said your surname right. Tibbets? Tibbets. Oh, it might be Tibbles. It looks like a T from here, but then I am a bit further away from the screen. So Nick says, enjoying listening to Pete Oxy and his music. Great that you are showcasing this talented artist on your show. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
It's always nice to have messages like that, so thank you. So it is really good to get the different and showcasing music, because different styles, different, as we were saying again before the show, that especially with a name with like Peggy-Sue, I listen to a wide range of music, but we were on about different moods, do different things. So your next track that we are going to play, to me, is a Ministry of Sound song. It's one of those should be on a Euphoria album or something like that, because it is one, and I do listen to those when I'm in a very good mood or I'm out walking or anything like that. It's something that's just lifts you up. I think what you'll find is, I mean, although this is a bit more of a dancey tune, I still use too many minor chords. I'm still a big minor chord person. You know, everything I do, it's got to be a minor chord. Oh, it's got to be a minor chord, which it's funny because I'm not a really sad person. I'm actually quite a happy person, but I think it's probably a lot to do with the influence of, the early influence of the bands that I listen to. Which is one of the questions I always ask any of my guests, is what's your musical influences? So you can tell our listeners about that.
Yeah, so I mean, varied. We spoke a bit before about War of the Worlds. So, you know, I was probably about 11 or maybe 12 when War of the Worlds first came out. And, you know, I loved it. It was just, for me, it was, my father actually said to me not too long ago, you know, they thought I was just obsessed with this thing because I just wouldn't stop playing it.
I still don't.
And you know, knowing all
I listen to it today.
Knowing the story, knowing all the words, knowing all the musical parts, being able to play the musical parts on
I can't do that bit. I can't do that, but I can do the singing.
Yeah. And yeah, that was kind of probably the start, because I mentioned before they used a lot of synthesizers on that track. In fact, they ended up building their own synthesizer. It's called the Thunderchild, funny enough.
It is, yeah.
Which you know, it's just tells you what they were how they were innovating at the time and building new instruments. So that kind of got me quite hooked on things like synthesizers. But then I heard a Japanese artist named Isao Tomita.
Okay.
Or he just goes by the name Tomita, who was using a lot of the Japanese Roland equipment, so the S800 or the S500 modular synthesizers with what's called micro composers. And he was actually doing orchestral music, but using electronically generated sounds to form the orchestra. So it was like he had this little orchestra, and that was groundbreaking. You know, when I heard that again, it was an album called The Bermuda Triangle, and I would just sit and listen to that. I mean, very unusual music, very, very strange, in a kind of genre of its own, really. But again, you know, it was synthesizers, and I then sort of hit my teenage years, and around this time we started hearing the first electronic bands. Kraftwerk was one of them. Not one I remember that well, but I remembered more and associated more with obviously the UK music scene.
Yeah.
So, you know, when I heard bands like Depeche Mode, and Yazoo, and Gary Newman, Thomas Dolby, you know, for me...
Now you're talking my childhood.
Yeah. For me, they were doing things differently. You know, Depeche Mode have always been an extremely innovative band in terms of their sound. You know, they chose to use only synthesizers and drum machines. So they were modern, you know, and if you go back again to Kraftwerk, who kind of started this off in the early 70s, you know, they were way ahead of their time. Their music, people were listening to it, trying to make sense of, you know, what were they actually doing. But what they were doing is they were pioneering new ground, which has led to a lot of the electronic music we have today. sometimes that's not always a good thing, but in general, you know, a lot of that influence comes in to bands like Daft Punk,
Yeah.
to artists like deadmau5, and, you know, really can be heard in a lot of the electronic dance music genre. And that's the reason I think I also enjoy the electronic music, dance music sound, because it's a constant challenge. I know, and if you listen to producers and look at the science behind it, you know, everything's getting louder, right? They're pushing they're putting compression on these tracks. They're pushing up the limiters. They're trying to get the sound to really stand out and be loud. But it's not necessarily a good thing, you know, because you do need to have that. So I watched an article the other day. It's very difficult today. You know, it's kind of easy and kind of difficult for people, right? Because anybody can pick up a laptop now, download what's called a DAW,
Yeah.
right? A digital audio workstation, can choose synthesizers that come out of the box with these things, or can download and purchase them onto net and do anything they want, right? And they can sit there and do their own arrangement. But there's a lot more to it than that. You know, no one can just open up a laptop and write a hit song. I guess there are people who can still do that. But, there's a lot of work that goes into understanding the science behind it. There's a lot of work around EQing and understanding how there are conflicts between different frequencies in different layers. And I think electronic dance music, you know, really pushes you to understand that, to understand what's going on in the low end and how to control what's going on in the low end. And I wouldn't think myself as an expert in that area, but, you know, I've really dived in deep and I think that's why a lot of my songs still quite dark and quite bassy, because that kind of draws me in. But you like to lighten it up as well. So yeah, the tune that you are going to play is in the EDM genre. It's a tune called Mangator. I kind of got the influence, I guess, from a YouTube video that I tried to get the rights to, but could never contact the owner. Because around the time I wrote it, I also downloaded Blender onto an iMac at home, and I became fascinated with. I've always been a fan of Photoshop and creating digital art, and I like to do it myself as well. But Blender is a three-dimensional modeling tool, and it was amazing. And I was looking at some of the work people had done, and a lot of it was around morphing.
Yeah.
You know, around images morphing, and one of them was kind of a man who was morphing into a reptilian alligator type of thing, you know, one of these sort of conspiracy theory. And I loved it. I thought, well, this is just great. Let me do some music to this. So that's where Mangator came from. So man alligator, I guess, is
Man alligator or Mangator.
Yeah, and that's it. That's the next tune you're going to hear.
And here it is.
Ganley's Crooked Road, Americana, acoustic and roots music on Swindon 105.5, Thursday evening, 8 to 10. Listen again, 2 minutes past midnight on Wednesday. Listen on air, on digital radio in Swindon and Marlborough, online, on smart speakers, and on our station mobile app.
Do you have a question or a comment for my guest this evening? Then why not text 07900 171 453, or if you're listening via the Swindon 105.5 app or website, just click on the Contact Us button and that will email me directly here in the studio. Just like Chloe has, who says she's tuned in. So thank you, Chloe. We have got your message.
Hello, Chloe.
See, that to me is definitely one of those tracks. It should be on a Euphoria track, but usually they put one like that as the last song for it to close it down.
Yeah.
So or it opens one up, but the way that ended, I would say that should close it down.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does close it down.
Yeah.
And you know, it's funny when you make this particular genre of music, electronic dance music. You have the waveform that you see of the whole song in Ableton, and you look at through Spectrum or one of the analyzers, and you've almost got like a pattern that you need to have this build, drop, build, drop, and it's almost like the song itself could probably be assembled using shapes.
Yeah.
And this kind of takes me on to the thing that I really like talking about, and I am a fan of AI, and when I say I'm a fan of AI, I've been interested in AI my whole life. I'm in the technology programming market as well, so that is part of it. But I think where we are today with AI, we tend to focus a lot on the artificial intelligence and less on intelligence itself, and what the intelligence is actually doing, or what the intelligence could actually do for people. Now, AI is going to benefit everybody, but there are massive dangers in it, right? And we all kind of see in whatever area you're coming from, where it can be useful, but where it can also be quite bluntly, it can be a threat, right?
Yeah.
If you look at things like medical science, AI is brilliant. Right?
It's very good. I work for the NHS full time, so this is a volunteering role here at the radio station. But it's definitely something that AI is very good for medical. Yeah.
So if we can speed up, getting treatments to patients, diagnosing patients with disease, AI is going to be good, because what AI is what it does and the way it kind of works is it's coded, but it's taught, right? So it's what we call machine learning. And it looks at sets of data, right? And it solves problems, and it finds patterns that we struggle to see, ourselves. It can pick out patterns in anything. And this is related a bit to music as well, because music are patterns, right?
Yeah.
So AI is coming in all over the place in music, and a lot of musicians are scared, right? Some of them who are vocalists think, well, it's going to replace me because, I make my money doing jingles, or, maybe musicians who make their money writing jingles for companies and so on. I think that's part of the threat, because you do have AI today that can actually write you a tune. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's not a threat in terms of let's take a step back and let's think of someone doing a crossword, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a fan of crosswords and you sit there and that's your pastime and you fill out your crossword every day and it's exciting. But what if you had an AI tool that could do it for you, right? There would be no point, right? That's your pastime gone.
Yeah.
Now, music making for most musicians, I would hope, certainly is for me, is the fun part of it.
Yeah.
Making the music and experimenting and finding new things is fun.
And making mistakes.
And making
or happy accidents.
Happy accidents. Which really, that's kind of what drives it. So if you're passionate about making the music, sure, there are tools that can probably help you. But I think a lot of musicians steer clear of some of those technologies. And the main reason is, at the moment, they're fairly immature, so they pretty much sound the same. Now, if you think about it, electronic music is very robotic and computerized in a way, right? Synthesizers, when they first came out, and drum machines, people, you're going to replace drummers, and you're going to, the synthesizer is going to replace all the other instruments, and there won't be orchestras anymore. And that's just not true.
It's not true at all.
it created a new genre. I think AI will probably create a few subgenres of its own. But I think people will hear, and I think you can hear pretty quickly, that there's something in this that is definitely not coming from a creative person, right? It's coming from something that is learnt from a very specific data set, and if you take it back to that data set, that's its influence. And I often, when I talk to people about AI, or even go on and use things like ChatGPT, you should ask an AI agent, do you dream? And they will say, no, we don't dream. Okay, and dreaming is part of the creative process that we have as part of our intelligence, right? When you dream things, you come up with new ideas. If these machines that we are teaching are only taught through machine learning, and they're not taught through their own creative time that can be done through dreaming, can be done through your hobby, can be done through making music or painting or whatever it might be, then there's going to be something missing. And I think the natural world will reject something artificial anyway, and will recognize something artificial. So I think a lot of the fear factor out there, and let's be specific about the music industry, is not necessarily warranted. You can choose to use AI, and you can choose not to use AI. You can bring AI in to parts of your process for mixing and mastering. It's not always going to replace what a person can feel, what a person can do, with a piece of art, and how they can polish it and bring it to life. So yeah, that's my thoughts on AI.
Now we're going to play another song of yours. Now this is, I've got to get this right now. Is it Salvalotion? I've got to try to say it now. Salvalotion.
Salvalotion. So let me, before you start that, I just want to give a little bit of the backstory there, because I think that's important to know before you hear it instead of afterwards, because you'll be scratching your head going, what is this? Salva the Ocean was an idea that came to me when I was in Italy, in Sardinia, and I was swimming in the wonderful blue, I was snorkeling in the wonderful blue sea there, and it's really amazing. But I was shocked by the amount of plastic that I saw when I was in the water, to the point where I ended up spending half my holiday cleaning things up, because it was just overwhelming. When you see less marine life and more plastic floating around, you really see that there's a bigger problem here. So I went on. I also said to my wife, I had my iPad, I had a recorder. I said, I want to make some recording. I want to make some kind of music here as well. That's often what I do. Yeah. So I recorded the sea, the beach, and used the sea sounds in the mix. But then I started listening to a lot of TED talks. So and there were lots of experts talking about, how do we clean our oceans? How do we stop the pollution in our oceans? And it was fascinating to hear these things. So what I did was I took blends of those conversations and kind of wove them together into this mix, into this tune, which is Salva la Ocean. So let's go ahead and hear.
Here it is.
Bag. It's not hazardous nuclear waste, it's a biscuit. This is me.
We're dying just from encountering plastic.
Love diving.
We are experiencing the fastest
my holiday slides here
ever.
This is at the pristine Azores Islands. And this is how the
automotive parts, from toothbrushes to fake Christmas
plastic fragments.
Plastic is all around
sun and waves over the
it's
years.
become such an essential component of our material existence that it's hard to imagine life without it.
Buy a biscuit
But is it really that hard?
within a plastic tray,
to imagine a world without plastic?
within some plastic
After all, the modern packaged products that we know and love today didn't really exist until the 1960s.
This hard to give up. This is where
And the
krill
interesting part
gather
is that
because they're brought in by the currents. And we knew the whales would head there because they eat krill. We didn't find whales. What we found was something very significant. It was a floating landfill plastic. This was a massive slick of detritus as far as the eye could see.
Many of you probably have it in your
It
pocket.
contained old fishing nets, boat boxes, plastic used by of humanity. It was absolutely tragic. It was a sign of a coming tragedy. Didn't know that at the time. We kept looking for the whale. And our time finally ran out. We had to head back to school because our fears were about to return. But I'm incredibly stubborn individual, and I hadn't come this far to work this hard to give up to work together. I knew the whales would head there because they didn't find whales. What we found was something very significant.
And just like that, it stops.
It does.
It drops a beat. So now, that it did actually go there. I don't know if people actually heard. It went from one song to another. So the song you just heard, the last song there, was Adaptive Morphosis.
Yes.
I have to say it right, Morphosis. So tell us about that one, because obviously that's completely different to the one about with the sound of the sea, and talking about the plastic, and because obviously that one that track did have all the voicing into it about the talking of the environment, whereas this one was just another drop the beat. Yeah, this is another one of those where, again, trying to play with the low end, the bass. It's a very bassy synthesizer sound and kick drum that are working together there, which is a nice challenge. It's always interesting to see, if you can craft something well at the low end, your whole overall sound, ends up very clean, and you've got to do a lot of EQing to get that. So this was more experimental, not using any sort of pre-sampled sound. These are all sounds that were made with Moog synthesizers. I got one of the Moog Matriarch synthesizers that I used on that one as well. So what we call analog synthesizers as opposed to digital. The analog is a richer, thicker sound, and I was trying to go for that. The adaptive morphosis, the word actually came from, again, I was using a software product called Blender, and I was into that morphing stuff, and to me that was adaptive morphosis. But what I did was there's a specific feature in Blender, and I'm not a Blender expert. There are so many Blender experts out there. It's a very powerful modeling and three-dimensional artist's tool. It's wonderful. But they have a toolkit for creating actions, so automation kit. And what I wanted to do with it, and what I succeeded in doing to some part, was if you think about any music track, there are these layers, right? You've got the kick at the bottom, you've got the bass and the sub bass down there as well, and then you've got all of your drum sounds, right up to your cymbal, which are higher frequencies. But they're all, when you build this music, you're building these things in different layers, and each one of these layers is really, on a technical level, nothing more than a stream of bits and bytes instructing the instrument to play a note, or to raise a note, or to change a note, or whatever it might be. It's telling the instrument what to do. Now, you can take that stream, or those streams, and you can feed them straight into Blender through this tool. So you can have a programmatic, what we call an API, right? Yeah.
A programmatic interface. And then you can instruct Blender what to do with these streams of data. So effectively, you're creating a digital dance. You can take a picture of something, and then you can say, based on the fact that there's a beat kicking in one every 4 beats, right? I want something to like wiggle around at the bottom of this thing. So you can adjust it so that it does that, and then you can make these things morph according to the feed that's coming in. That takes a long time, and I'm pretty sure there are teams of programmers out there that have done this or have already done this. There must be. But I tried to do it. I built some of the scripts that fed in, and ended up creating the video of something moving around that was based on the information it was getting fed. And to me, there's a bit of AI that could go on into that as well. More in terms of, I'm putting in the rules to say what to do when it hears the track, but when it receives a stream of data, do something different. But you could use machine learning to train it to do different things, right? To actually decide, okay, I'm going to change this, and I'm going to start making it myself. So there's a bit of space for AI in that, okay? But again, I'm meandering back to my AI topic again. Again, it's like what you choose to do, with the music. Now, AI would be quite useful for people like me who can't really make videos that well, and I just need a video, But then when I look at the AI videos, you can tell it's AI. Same with the voice.
Yeah.
I don't want to use AI voices. I think that to me would make everything sound worse, not better. It wouldn't improve the sound. So I'm kind of steering clear of that. But always experimenting, always going back to this idea of experimenting, whether that be with analog synthesizers, whether that will be with computer systems. That is the pastime, right? That is the hobby that is the fun and the creative side of making music.
Well, we are fast coming up to near the end of the show. So before we talk about the last song, can you tell our listeners how they can find out more information about yourself or about your music, where they can find the music?
Absolutely. So I publish everything. I call it the dumping ground to SoundCloud. So if you search Pete Oxy on SoundCloud or my alias, which is Sugarmind, you will find most of the music I make in SoundCloud. There's some good stuff, I guess, and there's some terrible stuff on there. So you can go back and look at history and how I've kind of evolved with playing around and experimenting with these sounds. I call it experimental music. It's all an experiment, right? So also on YouTube. So if you go on YouTube, search for Sugarmind or Pete Oxy, I'm sure you'll come to the same place. And those are the tunes that you'll see on SoundCloud with some kind of video context. Some of them very crude videos, but you have to go with what you've done and what you get, right? And then Facebook as well. You can find me, Pete Oxy, on Facebook, and Sugarmind, the page on Facebook.
Right, just before we talk about your last song, which is First 25, we've just had Nick message back in again. Hello, Nick, thank you, and I'm sorry if I got your name wrong. Says, this floating landfill track is incredible. It reminds me a bit of Laurie Anderson or an early Yazoo track called I Before E except After C.
Yes. I do. Thanks, Nick. I do think about that track actually. And that was kind of groundbreaking, right? That album by Yazoo back in the 80s, where they literally just recorded voice over voice, and Alison Moyet's voice, fantastic. Vince Clarke's ability to manipulate,
definitely.
His machines. He's been expert at that. So yeah, thanks, Nick. That is a good comparison. It's nice to be compared to people like Yazoo, that's for sure.
Right. So before we say goodnight to everyone, please tell us about the next track, First 25.
Yeah, First 25. I wanted to end up on something a little bit happier, because a lot of my music is dark. It is. Some people will describe it as being very depressing. Or First 25. I kind of wanted to change the mood a little bit. So there's some major chords in there, which is quite different for me. I've discovered that you can use major chords as well. First 25, very experimental in terms of the sound. I was trying to use a lot of blipping sounds coming in and going out with samples of people laughing and things like that. I actually recorded part of this in Reykjavik. I went to Iceland for my 25th wedding anniversary, which is what First 25 actually was about. So yeah, we celebrated our first 25 years, and I thought it would be good to make a song and a video about that. So that's what First 25 is.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming in this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you everyone for listening. And here is First 25. Good night, everyone.